things just keep looking worse and worse for Boeing. A former Boeing consultant is one of the Justice Department's officials who will determine whether the aircraft manufacturing giant will face criminal charges following plane crashes and a slew of safety concerns that have come to light this year. Lisa Monaco, the United States Deputy Attorney General, had Boeing as a client when she worked at West Executive Advisors, a consulting firm co-founded by Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
In 2021, when she was being appointed to her current position, she reported owning between 1,000 and 15,000 of Boeing stock. She reported the same in 2022, according to new reporting in The Lever. Now, Boeing saw even more criticism come its way today. A Boeing executive gave new details about how the 737 MAX plane lost a panel in January. He said the plane left the ground without 4 critical bolts that secured the panel, also known as a door plug. But the National Transportation Safety Board is sanctioning Boeing for disclosing the non-public details. The board says that Boeing has blatantly violated the agency's rules by providing information about what happened to the public during the ongoing investigation. Here now to discuss all of this is Lever reporter Freddy Brewster. Welcome to Rising.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so tell us about this seemingly obvious conflict of interest involved in the official looking into this.
Yeah, so Lisa Monaco, like you guys stated in the opening there, she used to work at West Executive Advisors, the consulting firm co-founded by Antony Blinken, and she's the second in charge of the Justice Department right now. But she's not the only person there that also has worked in the corporate world. There's also Nicole Argentieri, who she had some pretty good prosecutorial bona fides when she was a federal prosecutor pursuing the mob in New York. But then she went on to work at O'Melveny and Myers, which is a law firm that boasts that it has dozens of former employees and high levels at the government. There's also Glenn Leon, who's the chief of the Justice Department's Criminal Fraud Division, and he used to work at as a compliance officer for Hewlett Packard. So it's an interesting revolving door between the corporate world and the governmental world. And then also, too, before I forget, Brett Geary, he's a former Justice Department employee, but he's now Boeing's chief legal officer.
Now, we had Alan Dulles and John Foster Dulles as darlings of the Eisenhower administration at the height of U.S. covert operations and proxy wars during the Cold War. Of course, Alan Dulles being the head of intelligence and John Foster Dulles being Secretary of State, both of whom were lawyers, corporate lawyers, at Sullivan and Cromwell, where they had multinational corporations as clients, including United Fruit Company. And under their administration, the United States government, through covert operations, decided to orchestrate a coup in Guatemala when the elected leader decided to pursue economic initiatives that would really hurt United Fruit Company's ability to exploit the land and labor there in Guatemala. And we're told that that was a terrible administration, times of the past. We don't have things like that going on now. And I think some people see these connections and they're like, oh, well, powerful people will always end up in similar places and working together. Can you speak to more how Lisa Monaco's history could influence her decision now? Because maybe she might find herself in the private world again after leaving her post.
Yeah, so aside from an uptick in action from the antitrust division, corporate prosecutions under Merrick Garland and Monaco have been rather sluggish. Lately, the Justice Department has had a record of handing down agreements that have been favorable to companies accused of misconduct. The record's a little complex, and we detail this out in the story, but in 5 out of 7 major fraud cases resolved in the past year, and in all cases involving U.S.-based companies, the Justice Department has offered deferred prosecution agreements. So this just kind of highlights how the revolving door between the government and the corporate world, allows for favorable prosecution agreements for these companies.
So what is next?
And then Robbie, too, there's an issue that Reason Magazine's reported on quite a bit, and that's been about how, federal prosecutors will just pack on charges for average citizens. And then, the flip side of that is that these corporations get some, appearingly sweetheart deals.
Yeah. So what is next? Thank you for noting that. What is next in trying to hold this company actually accountable?
Yeah, they have until July 7th to bring official charges. There hasn't been, any word as to yet about how the Justice Department is going to go, but they have, just about a week to finalize this.
There's been a lot of attention to the treatment of whistleblowers by Boeing. There was kind of a firestorm following the congressional hearings surrounding this. But it seems to me that Congress is not the body that will ultimately take action that will result in any kind of recourse for Boeing. It sounds like it's going to have to come from the DOJ. And while we've seen a lot of action in the antitrust division on some fronts, it seems that their silence on this is a deliberate exemplification of their bias here. And you spoke to favorability, sort of having this favoritism of Boeing. It seems to me that this exchange of favors has a monetary value to Boeing. And so I'm curious if you think in potentially the next administration, if it's not Biden, there will be any kind of legal recourse for people like Lisa Monaco. Have you heard any rumblings of people pursuing, criminal prosecution for this exchange of favors?
I've not heard of any sort of criminal prosecution for that. But this is unfortunately the way the government has operated, as of lately. And who knows? Like there could be some change to that, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
I'm curious also, Freddie, how did you get a lead on this story? I haven't heard this outside of the reporting by the Lever. The Lever's always covering really good stories, investigative reporting I don't see elsewhere. I'm curious where this lead came from.
I mean, you just looked right into Lisa Monaco's history of her working at West Execs. I mean, it's just right there. I think The Intercept had previously reported on her doing consulting work for Boeing in 2021. They did kind of like a big profile of West Exec Advisors, the consulting firm, and we just kind of like built off of that.
What do you make of these whistleblowers who have? I mean, it's not funny at all. Literally dying under mysterious circumstances where the evidence. I don't want to be conspiratorial. The evidence has clearly indicated natural causes or suicide, but it just seems so damning and so suspicious, given the things they were going to say about Boeing, before in front of investigators.
Yeah, we haven't done any reporting on the whistleblower deaths. But an interesting thing with the Justice Department as it relates to whistleblowers is that in March 2023 they issued a memo on corporate compliance programs saying that prosecutors should consider the adequacy and effectiveness of the compliance program at the time of the offense as well at the time of the charging decision. Well, was it just last week, Boeing's CEO, David Calhoun, admitted during a Senate testimony hearing that whistleblowers have been retaliated against. And so it doesn't really seem like, Boeing has been, has a strong, fruitful compliance program in place. And then also previously we reported, or I reported earlier this year that, there's been more than 1,800 service difficulty reports, which are essentially like federal safety reports that airlines have to issue regarding Boeing's 737 MAX program. So there's, long-running issues with the 730 MAX program in particular.
I'm trying to get Robbie won over on this, but I like to frequently reference Benito Mussolini's quote that fascism is the merging together of the corporations and the state and would more effectively be called corporatism. We have had many people say that the United States is descending into fascism. It's already a fascist state. Donald Trump being included, one of the people who's labeled the United States as such. Should people be concerned about, this not being prosecuted and the future administrations we could have? We might, hear some future plans from Donald Trump or Joe Biden about what the Justice Department will look like going forward in terms of handling corporate power in the United States. What would you tell people on that front who are very nervous of the merging together of states and corporations, especially here at home?
Yeah, I mean, look at rent affordability right now. Like that's like one of the largest issues facing America, and like the merging of the corporate world and government is, you have these corporations just buying up homes across the country. So I would say, yeah, you should be concerned to a certain degree about the government and the corporate world merging together. That's resulted in higher healthcare prices as well. But yeah, as far as like, the DOJ bringing charges against Boeing, it'll be really interesting to see how they go after this company that has a, decades long relationship with the government. And how this will affect their relationship going forward. And, I just like I mentioned earlier, why is it that the government or federal prosecutors want to pack on charges and throw the book at the average citizen to get like a plea bargain? But when it comes to these corporations, they tend to, offer sweetheart deals or, every which way to not have a guilty plea on their record.
Yeah, we did see, the FBI raid a corporate landlord. That's a really good example. I guess no one in the administration was a former consultant for Realtek or Cortland Management, but I hope we see work like that continue.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you having me on. Thank you.